Welcome to another edition of Women in Investing. In light of National Wills Week in the second week of September, we're here to discuss a vital topic that impacts everyone, wills and estates. Today we'll explore the essential conversations to have with your financial advisor about securing your financial legacy through a will. My name is Francheska Subban. I'm a sales manager at 91. And to help me unpack this conversation, I'm joined by Renette Hendriks, Director of Fiduciary Services at Personal Trust. She has a law degree at the University of Stellenbosch and a diploma in financial planning. Welcome, Renette.
Thank you so much.
So let's kick off. Where does a will fit into our investments and just our overall financial planning?
It's quite important because people tend to think that it's two different things. But I often find when somebody comes to see me about a will, that it leads to them thinking more about what they actually want out of life. How do they want to deal with their investments? How do they want to tailor their investments to get to that end goal? What do they leave as a legacy to those they leave behind? Because it's the first part of their financial planning as well for the next generation.
Completely understand.
Yeah.
And I mean, when we're sitting down with this financial advisor, I mean, I know that many people out here are very private, potentially.
Yes.
What should we be disclosing to our financial advisor?
Remember, it's a very personal conversation and it is privileged. So you need not worry about it coming out somewhere. You have to be blatantly honest. It's farcical sitting in front of your financial advisor and telling them how wonderful your children are if you really have concerns about them, or your children-in-law that you absolutely hate. So Roman Dutch law has provided wonderful vehicles and means for us to address all those concerns with trusts and fiduciary things and usufructs. And if a will is properly tailored, it can take care of all of that. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. So it is very important as well to disclose all your assets, your financial circumstances to them, and then as well which type of assets you have. If you have assets that sits abroad, you have to have 2 wills or more wills. So the rule of thumb is to have 1 will per jurisdiction where you have fixed property.
Oh, interesting.
Yes, because fixed property is governed by the law where it is situated, unlike all your other assets, which is governed by the law where you are domiciled at the date of your death. So it's an easy thing to do. It sounds quite complicated to have an offshore will, but it just basically, the heading changed a little bit and you just basically cater for those assets specifically. It makes it easier to wind up the estate and quicker and more efficient.
Same advisor, just 2 different wills.
Same advisor, 2 different wills.
And I know, like, I've seen policies, there's certain potential investments that I see that there's nominated beneficiaries. Is this included in my will?
It's not, so you can include it in your will just for record purposes, but your nomination, in terms of your beneficiary nomination, will override what your will says. So that is policies, annuities, anything with that beneficiary nomination form attached to it. And your financial advisor will take care of that as well.
I mean, this is Women in Investing.
Yes.
So if I have a joint will, is this binding? Can I amend it?
That's quite a common misconception out there. And I see a lot of people make use of Dr. Google as well, and that doesn't really give you the South African context. You can never ever infringe somebody's rights or freedom of testation. So if you want to make a will the next day after you've made a joint will with your husband or your wife, you can do it. You're not bound by that will. And if they pass away, then it is just your section of the will that continues and you can always amend it. So yes, definitely, you cannot lock somebody in with a joint will.
That's really good to know. And I know that, you know, especially depending on, different backgrounds, a little letter written and put in a box.
Yeah.
Some people think that that's absolutely valid, and when they pass on, that will be their wishes. What is a legally valid will in South Africa?
Yeah, it's quite unfortunate. We do see quite a few invalid wills out there. The Wills Act is quite strict on what it allows us to do and what is deemed a valid will. So a will has to be signed on every page in the presence of 2 independent witnesses, and then obviously dated. And with independent witnesses, I mean somebody that is that doesn't stand to benefit from the estate or their husbands and wives.
Okay, so no beneficiaries signing with
No beneficiaries.
as witnesses.
It won't invalidate the will, but it will just mean that that person cannot benefit from the will.
Okay. And I hear invalidation. So
Yes.
how can you contest a will?
You often find people saying that I'm going to contest the will because they're mad at what the person put in the will, but it's not as easy. So if you have found that one of these formal requirements are lacking, then a will be invalid and you can contest it based on that. Or the second ground would be if somebody wasn't of sound mind when they signed their will. So if they signed it under duress, so the moment the person weren't able to action their own decisions anymore, under duress, or if they have some or other mental incapacity that they can't put their words into action anymore. So even if somebody's been diagnosed, and it's quite interesting with something like dementia, they can have lucid moments.
Oh, wow.
And if somebody then signs a will under a lucid moment, when they know exactly what they're doing, it's important that they sign it in front of their medical doctors. Because the medical doctor will basically affix a certificate to say that they knew exactly what they were doing, and it basically validates the will.
And once we have the will, I
Yes.
mean, and you know, when somebody passes on, how long does it take to actually wind up an estate?
It takes about 12 to 18 months to wind up an estate.
Okay.
And that is subject to the provision that you have a proper drafted will and a proper estate plan in place.
And of course, nobody contesting it as well.
Yes.
And is there anything that you need to save up for it? Do you need to allocate funds for it? Is there costs pertaining to winding up the estate?
Yes. So the prescribed rate for executors' fees is 3.5%. Remember, that's always negotiable. So go to your financial advisor. Depending on what your asset base is and the nature, and we always say the nature and the value of your assets, it's always negotiable. So don't just stop at 3.5%. Look into it, and then there's estate duty that will be levied on your estate. Estate's over 3.5 million, and it's levied at 20%. And remember, the estate is also a taxpayer. So all the taxes up to date of death needs to be done. Your death is a tax event, so there will be capital gains tax payable, and then you'll have to do post-death taxes as well. So all those things like tax fees, conveyancing fees. Fortunately, there's no transfer duty, which is your big ticket
Good to
item.
know.
But those little fees you need to bear in mind.
And this can be discussed with a financial advisor,
Definitely.
of course, right?
So as a rule of thumb, I always work on 10%. So 10% of the value of your estate, set that aside just to cover costs.
And now that I have this will, I've worked hard, I've sat with you, we've written it out, I have 2 wills because there's offshore now all of a sudden.
Yes.
What are some practical tips that you would actually give somebody leaving this conversation?
So make sure your original will is stored safely in a safe place. So usually your financial advisor would have safe custody. Leave it with them and just ask for a certified copy. Advise your children as well where your original will is so that they don't go scrambling around. You get wonderful things like life files or personal registered as well. It basically prompts you to fill all these things online. Fill in all your things online. So it basically is a register of your assets, where to find certain things. Where do you find your anti-nuptial contract? Where do you find your title deeds to your property? It is quite common as well for people to hand that over to their financial advisor. Things like title deeds and anti-nuptial contracts, divorce decrees, so that it's held in one place. And unfortunately, with natural disasters and things we've seen in the past, it doesn't really work anymore to keep a file in your study.
Oof, I think we're all a bit guilty there.
Guilty there. So people think it's fine, they'll leave it in their study, they'll discuss it. Well, some people never discuss it with their spouses because they think if they discuss it, they'll die. So it's very good to keep it in one place online. Speak to your financial advisor as to which solution would be the best for you. But definitely keep those documents together, keep everything in one place, and tell everybody where it is, especially your next of kin.
Amazing. Thank you, Renette. Special thanks to Renette Hendriks for sharing her invaluable insights on wills and estates. I'm sure all of us have learned something. These conversations are undoubtedly crucial for safeguarding our financial legacies and ensuring our loved ones are taken care of as per our wishes. Thank you for joining us for this special September edition of Women and Investing during National Wills Month. We hope you found this conversation enlightening and empowering. Stay tuned for more informative discussions on financial planning, investments, and securing your financial future. Thank you.